with you.
And also with you.
I'd like to ask Matt to go ahead and put up a picture. Now I got to ask, what is wrong with this picture? Yes, Samantha. Yes, the wheels are squares instead of circles. That kind of makes it a little difficult to pull a cart or anything for that matter. What could they do to make the cart roll a little bit smoother? What could they do? You notice anything inside the cart? Yeah, there's some round wheels up in that cart, aren't there? And so if they were to take the wheels out of the cart and put them on to the cart in place of the square wheels, they would allow the cart to roll a lot more smoothly, a lot easier, and the cart would be able to move. Now this is an easy enough illustration of how the resources that we need are there, but we don't always use them. Instead, we choose to make our lives harder, keeping our gifts hidden. And we do things that simply make our lives harder. And I'm not talking about something that we've just learned and has yet to become second nature for us. But I'm talking about something that will just not become natural for us. For me, I enjoy singing, and I'm sure that you guys appreciate that I don't sing the liturgy on Sunday morning. In life, it might play out a little bit more like this. A good friend of mine used to own a small business. It was a gym. Now, Thomas loved working at the gym because he was able to connect with the people. He was able to talk with them and get to know them. However, neither Thomas nor his business partner were very good business people. Eventually, Thomas went looking for another line of work, and he liked people so much that he ended up thinking that, he might be able to use his gifts at a car dealership. But he quickly found out that this line of work was not for him. There was a high level of stress, and the dealership forced him to be a person that he wasn't. It was high-pressure sales, and this environment just simply drained him. Soon after, Thomas became a FedEx driver, and he loves it. He now works 4 10-hour days, and as a swing driver, picking up other people's routes when it's their day off or when they're off on vacation. He gets to meet a myriad of different people coming and going from the different businesses that he goes to. Now, there's a child in Thomas's life, Chris, who is the child of Thomas's ex-wife, and Thomas continues to spend time with Chris, even though Chris isn't Thomas's child, continuing to be an influence and taking Chris fishing, to the beach, helping him with his schoolwork. Recently, Chris wasn't doing so well in school, so Thomas enrolled in the DOGS program, where men, who are generally sparse in our schools, go into the schools and become positive influences on the students. Thomas loves this. At some points in his life, Thomas was working with some square wheels. But as a businessman, as a car salesman, he was working against his natural, spirit-giving gifts, trying to roll on those square wheels. But when he started using the gifts that he was given, Thomas found that he was rolling right along, able to thrive, and other people began to benefit as well. As we work into our 60-60 challenge, seeing God at work in our world, we can also look at and begin to see the gifts that God has given us to use for the sake of God's kingdom. There's so many gifts of the Spirit that are given to be utilized. And they come sometimes in the forms of our hobbies or some other passion that we have. It may be in our innate natures or an interest we have, or come in the form of resources that we've been blessed with. We can use these gifts in the name of God as we build relationships for the sake of the kingdom. God has given these gifts to use, gifts that make our lives easier and the lives of others easier as well, gifts of the Spirit. And as we use them, God and others are blessed through our lives. These are gifts that lead to our sharing God. Gifts that help us to roll on wheels that are round and are not square. As I think about where I see people using their gifts and passions and hobbies, I can't help but think about the Cars ministry, a ministry where people come together to fix cars, giving a tune-up at times and sometimes giving a refreshed car to someone who might not be able to acquire a car otherwise. The Cars ministry is a ministry where a group of people live out their faith by doing something they love, working on cars. They're not the kind of people who are verbal, but are willing to help out others, using their hobby and passions for fixing cars. There are even people who donate their time to Habitat for Humanity, putting in the electrical or plumbing or doing carpentry work. Another example of using gifts and passions which has touched the lives of many of you is Friday Fun Fest. This is a place where several of you utilize your hobbies, teaching children new skills and hobbies as I go from room to room each Friday. So many of the volunteers are simply beaming as they're spending time teaching something they are passionate about: knitting, embroidery, board games. And some of the guys are working with the kids on computers and even woodworking. Now, in another context, if I gave these same volunteers 10 kids, they wouldn't know what to do. In another context, they'd be trying to roll on square wheels, and the time spent with the kids would be extremely difficult for them. But because they're sharing something that they know and a hobby that they love, volunteers find that they're rolling on round wheels, using the gifts of the Spirit to further God's kingdom through the relationships that are built with those students. Over and over, many of the people of grace know their gifts and use them. I can think of many other examples, such as our Sunday school teachers, the building and grounds crew, the Peacemakers quilting group, the choir. As we look around worship, there are many other examples, such as the choir, the music leaders, the ushers, the greeters, the altar guild. And the list goes on and on and on. And there's room for many more people to help out on Sundays. When people utilize the gifts they've been given, they're also building relationships with others, the people they're working with and those they serve. They're using these relationships to further God's kingdom through God-given gifts. As they use their gifts for the kingdom of God, they become closer to others and closer to God.